Hello and welcome to the Omni Price Journey to RPM webinar today. I appreciate you guys being with us. I'm going to take a few seconds to introduce myself and then I'm going to go off camera so that you can focus on the content today. But I am Jen, the Director of Operations here at Rockton Software. And like I said, I'm really happy that you guys were able to join us today. I assume that if you are here with us today, that means that you are interested in learning more about RPM and what it might look like for you to go from RPM or OmniPrice over to RPM. So with that, I'm just going to switch over so you can see the slides here. We're going to dive in a little bit. I am going to do a quick refresher of just a little bit about RPM. If you've missed, this is the third webinar in a series. And so if you've missed any of the other webinars, I want to just do a quick recap so that you kind of understand what we're presenting and a little bit about RPM. So RPM is it is an enhancement to what OmniPrice was, or is, I should say. It just is a little bit amplified, and it is built so that it's ERP agnostic. And so if you are considering ever currently or even ever in the future moving off of GP onto another ERP system, we want to make sure that you're covered when it comes to your complex pricing. And so just showing that list there of some of the ERPs that we integrate with. And then, like I mentioned a little bit ago, is a few weeks ago we hosted a webinar where we really spotlighted kind of the complexity of RPM and how it was built. So to give you a little bit of background, RPM was built from years of working with customers and supporting RPM or Omni Price. I'm going to keep going back and forth because we keep talking about both of them and I'm using the acronyms. Um, and as we explored ways to enhance Omni Price, this was probably a good eight-ish years ago, it became really clear that improving Omni Price and the way that we wanted to go about it, it was just too advanced for the technology that Omni Price was built on. And so rather than forcing a workaround, what we decided to do is kind of take a bigger leap and create a new solution. And so that's how OmniPrice or Rockton Pricing Management was born. So it was built to be that ERP agnostic. So that was flexible and it was designed to keep up with the evolution and demands of modern pricing. Uh, and so RPM or Rockton Pricing Management, think of it as the next generation in pricing tools, really just shaped by real feedback from our customers and over the years of just our experience. The slide that you're looking at right now is a slide that was shared in that webinar a couple weeks ago, and I wanted to share it again here today for a few reasons. If you kind of look up at that very first slide in the upper left, where it's just a single price sheet, think of that as like manually managing pricing, maybe managing it in Excel, and then you go over to the first one to the right where you see multiple kind of just layered, that initial layer, that's Omni Price. So you need to maybe add some special pricing for a date, maybe around a specific customer, and other criteria where managing it in one contract still makes sense. And then maybe throughout the days, or throughout the years, like I said, things get a little bit more complicated where you ended up layering even more. So you see that last little picture where there's like multiple pricing contracts just layered on top of each other. And really what OmniPrice was built for is almost like that one-to-one where it was a contract for maybe a single customer or a single set of rules that applied to the masses versus getting really in that granular piece. Like RPM is, or those granular pricing needs. And so when you think of when you think of RPM, it is really built for that layering of the pricing. So the more complex, so if you have, um, let's say you have a um, maybe a special tax, or you have, again, that was date specific um, pricing needs, or you want to layer up customer loyalties, or maybe shipping zones, things like that. But there's a lot of similarities, and you don't want to necessarily attach it to one contract because it might apply to multiples. What RPM allows you to do is really separate all of those layers and then kind of start layering them on top of each other for each of those specific complex needs. So if you haven't already watched that webinar, I do suggest you go back. All of our prior webinars are out on our website. That was back in, I think it was June 25th, so a couple weeks ago. And if you have questions about it too, just at the end, we'll open it up for question and answers. And so if you have questions, then we can send that webinar over to you if you're unable to find it. Otherwise, we'll give you some contact information too at the end, how you can reach out, and we'll get you some more of that information. But let's dive in. And actually, before I dive into the implementation process, what I want to show you first is just this really nice visual. So this too is a visual of RPM, or the one that we use for RPM, but you can use it for Omni Price as well. So what you see on the left-hand side is that all the inputs, customer items, unit of measure, and so on and so forth. So whatever you're taking from your ERP system to calculate your pricing, it goes into that engine. And then on the right-hand side where you see pricing, that's what RPM and or Omni Price is going to spit out. Now the information under, so the list under pricing, where you start seeing things like price adjustments, royalties, rebates, commissions, that is the difference between, or one of the major differences between Omni Price and RPM, is RPM is going to allow you to not only just calculate those special prices, but it's going to allow you to calculate all of these additional adjustments, where you can then either send those off to GL accounts and or see them even in the transaction. So again, just kind of adding those different layers of complexity with your pricing. So we're going to go, that's enough for the recap, and we're going to get into today's topic. And today's topic is really focused on how does this process happen? How do I move from Omni Price to RPM? And before we dive in, I just want to acknowledge that changing new software can feel overwhelming and nerve-wracking. And it's not just about the new software, but it's really about trusting in the transformation and making sure that you're not missing anything in your business operation when you do make those changes. And so our goal, and at least my goal today, is to demystify that journey for you and show you the path from OmniPrice to RPM, and to reassure you that we have a clear roadmap for you. We have a team that's here to walk beside you in the entire way, and just kind of give you some more information so you can make a informed decision. So here's just a recap of what we're going to go over. We are going to go over all of these phases. There are 6 phases in our implementation process, and we're going to dive into each one of them, and just so you have a little more understanding of what happens in each one of those phases. So the first phase is our discovery phase. And this is where our team takes quite a bit of time. So this is, if you're familiar with Stephen Covey, the sharpen the saw, the spending the time up front, really gathering the information and really understanding what it is that's currently frustrating for you about your pricing, or maybe where you're running into any issues. or maybe what has or hasn't been working with Omni Price in the past, really discovering that and understanding what is your pricing strategy even going forward, and how do you see that, what does that evolution look like for you, and maybe even the evolution of your industry, so that we can build all of that into a pricing strategy for you. And during this time, it's quite a bit back and forth between your team and our team. We create a document that is a shared document that highlights all of those pain points, what you're trying to accomplish, and then we start building out solutions and discussing, okay, that strategy and figuring out how do we want to take that strategy and make it come to life. And so think of it here at the bottom of the slide. It says, really think about it as your blueprint for success. And we're working together to create that blueprint. So then the next phase is the provisioning phase. And a lot of this kind of happens in the background, where your team is pulled in here and there, but really we're kind of doing the heavy lifting in this section. We go ahead and we make sure that the software is installed and that it is talking to your ERP system. We go through a phase where there is a function or an operation that we run that basically syncs your ERP data from, in this case, GP over into RPM. But again, if you decide ever in the future to move ERPs, then it would be from that new ERP into RPM, so that they're talking together and they're using that same data. So we're syncing that up. So again, that kind of that bottom part of the slide, if you're looking at it, it's all that plumbing work, and we take care of that piece, so that way it's, like I said, you guys don't have to. Then we move into what we call the proof of concept. So now that we've taken the time to get to understand your pricing, understand your strategic strategy for moving forward, and then setting everything up. Now what we want to do is we want to kind of start showing you the magic. And so what we do in this phase is we build out all of those strategies into solutions inside the system so that you can see it actually happening. And then once we build those out with you, we go ahead and demo it to you so you can see and test them and make sure that you're getting exactly what you would expect in the price in those different scenarios that you maybe face or that we discussed in the discovery process. So this is really that validation phase. Next, we move into training. And so a big part of this is we really want to make sure that we're empowering you to understand how the system works, manage the system, and not just you, but also your team or anyone on your team that needs to or will be in charge of managing the pricing going forward. And so once we build out that solution, we go ahead and there's a number, sometimes it's 2 to 3 training sessions, kind of depending upon what fits for your team. But there are a number of different training sessions that we go through, and we basically go through each section of the module and we show you how we set it up, basically in line with your discovery document, the whys behind what was set up, how to troubleshoot if you run into a situation where you're like, you know what, this isn't coming back as I would expect. We go through and show you how to do troubleshooting alongside us. Also, we show you how to use the online built right in the application, since it is a web app. We'll show you how to access all of the online help, how to access all the online videos, and just kind of walk through and answer any of the questions that you have about what we've currently done. Then we basically hand it over to you and we say, okay, now it's time for you to go and do that final testing. Go through and test out those scenarios with your team, have them run through the scenarios that you would necessarily run into in their day-to-day, and make sure that they're getting the results that they expect. We give you a outline of what we would like you to test, and then we work together and we meet together on a cadence that we decide together. Sometimes it's weekly, sometimes it's bi-weekly, again, just depending on the needs of your organization. And we have you test, and then we come back and we meet and we discuss, what questions did you have? How is the progress going? So we're in constant communication with you through this user acceptance phase. And then once we can confirm everything is working, we basically check off every section of the uh, the user acceptance testing. Then you guys give us the thumbs up, and then we prepare for the next phase, which is your go live phase. So your launch date, switching right over to RPM, and we switch it from your test environment over into your live environment, which is really just basically kind of a click of the switch, if you will. And at that point, you guys are ready to go live. We do kind of do a quick check-in, making sure all the I's are dotted, T's are crossed, and you guys are ready to go. And then we switch over the system and you guys get to start working in the live system. And yes, that can sound a little scary, especially when it is your livelihood, or how you're pricing your items and products that you're selling. So we do want to make sure that you understand what is expected of us. And so throughout the entire process, and a lot of this is probably what you've experienced already in owning Omni Price for some time, is that we are here to partner with you. We're not, and we're here to guide you. And we're not necessarily here to be like, okay, we implemented it and now we walk away. No, it's very much a partnership. Like I said earlier, there will be a cadence of how often we communicate, and that's usually something that we collaborate on. We figure out what works best for both parties. Uh, and you always have access to our services team and our support team. And I should explain that as well. So while you're going through the implementation, you work one-on-one with an implementation specialist and a project manager. And once we're like, okay, you guys are live and you're doing well, we move you over to support. And in the back end, you really still our team is still interacting with each other. On the front end, it's just going from services to support. And you likely already know how our support works. We're usually we're pretty well known for responsiveness and just our care and detail to attention for our customers and their support needs. So we don't just implement and walk away. We give you plenty of chances to ask questions and make sure that you feel confident and clear on the product. So a couple things, a couple calls to action, and a couple reminders. So the first reminder is I want to make sure that you understand that with our with the addition of RPM, that does not mean that OmniPrice is going away. We are still here to support and deliver OmniPrice. So if OmniPrice is working for you today and you're not making any manual changes in OmniPrice, and if you look out at your strategic pricing plans for the future and there isn't any changes that OmniPrice cannot handle, then staying on OmniPrice might be the best option for you. However, if you are considering moving an ERP system, if you, like I said, if you're doing any manual adjustments to RP or to OmniPrice, or if you look at that strategic plan and you're like, okay, in the future, we're really going to need to start calculating maybe commissions or rebates or special taxes, and we may need to make sure that they don't all just go to one single GL account, but they go to multiple, or you kind of start thinking of just layering on that complexity in the future, then RPM likely is your next move. And if that is the case, then making sure that you're fully educated on RPM and all its features. Again, today I just kind of gave you a sneak peek, assuming that you've maybe seen the webinars prior to this. But if you haven't, then our website has all of the videos, plus some. We have, of course, just the other, not just the webinars that we've been doing, but also just the informational and the feature based videos out on our website that you can access at any time. Also, our sales team is here to do dedicated demos, or even if you just want to call and you have specific question and answer that maybe after this webinar you think of later on, you can reach out to us, and we're always happy to schedule that call with you and discuss and go through those questions. Or maybe it's even you have more specific questions about, like, hey, can we dive in and just review what our plan is for the future and let us know, and can you guide us of, hey, should we stay on Omni Price, or do you think we should move over to RPM? We can have that conversation with you as well. Uh, or you can just continue to join these series. We're going to have a couple more webinars coming up. The next one is the feature face-off. That one's going to really dive in. Blake, our technical sales lead, he's going to dive into the features and basically do the comparison between Omni Price and RPM. So kind of demystify what features are in each of those products, and you can see that side by side. And so those will be good ways to get some more information. Finally, as a reminder, if you need to know how to get a hold of us, I'll keep this up on the screen. And I should have said at the beginning of the webinar, I was not going to take up the full hour, so I'm going to give you the gift of time back here very shortly. But I will keep this up just for a few more seconds before we open it up for question and answers. And yeah, can jot that down. Blake, did we have any questions and answers that came in? I will quickly look here. I am not seeing any questions yet, but we'll leave it open just for another few seconds to see if anybody does. And if they don't, I just want to take this opportunity to thank you for taking the time out of your day to go ahead and listen about the journey, the implementation journey. And again, if you have questions, just reach out, or you can unmute yourself and ask them now. All right, doesn't look like there's any questions, so we will wrap up and give you some more time back in your day. Again, appreciate your time, and we look forward to working with you in the future. Take care.